Welcome to Linux Saloon, a place to discuss tech, open source, and where Linux is always on tap. Each show I have a talk about Linux projects, such as a distribution, desktop environment, or application. We also chat about the news or any variety of topics from the community. Anything that's Linux tech and open source related is on the table for discussion. I'm Nate, Linux. What is my thing? Linux fitness and vintage tech enthusiast with an almost unhealthy obsession with the OpenSUSE project. I kind of got hit in the head there a little bit, I think. So, how is everybody?
Excellent.
I think Eris is right. You've overextended yourself. Couldn't remember your intro.
Eris is right about a lot of things. So, yeah.
It's true.
All right. I'm just double checking to make sure. My mic is a little hot again. I don't know what happens. Like every time I start something, it kind of always cranks up to 100%. I don't want it there. Anyway, if you were so kind as to tap on that like button there, and better yet, join us here on the Discord voice chat, or make sure to provide your input there in the YouTube stream, that would be groovy. And then you can also join the Discord or Telegram groups for discussion between shows, like throughout the week. If you have got a help desk there and everything, got news topics, all kinds of fun things going on out there in the interweb ether, that a little corner of the ether. So yeah, it'll be good times. Also, be sure to do the straw poll if you have not done so already. keepinglate.com/polls. Got a about how many partitions do you have on your computer? I'm guessing Mike Chilson has 30. But I don't want to jinx it.
No, I've only got, other than the system ones, two other partitions.
Are you spoiling? Spoiling it? Anyway,
Yep.
Do that straw poll and tell us what you got. All right. So on the docket for today, we got a fantastic news flight night. We got all kinds of jam-packed with all kinds of goodness. I don't know how much we're going to get to it, but we'll do our best. Do some housekeeping, and then last call. But before that, what are we doing on Linux and tech? I didn't really prepare this, but does anybody have anything like going on exciting that they've this past week?
Crickets.
You went to a yeah.
No, I was going to say crickets too. I don't have anything. Sorry.
I have something, but it might rile people out. So
Do it. Go ahead and rile us up.
I've been playing around with OpenClaw and a bunch of AI agents, and it's pretty rad.
Oh yeah, I was just reading about that.
Yeah, I've been interacting with it mostly through a Telegram bot. Funny enough.
Yeah.
And, I know what I'm doing because I'm actually a professional, so I've actually secured it properly. saying, so before you go all, but it's insecure. Trust me, I know what I'm doing. And so yeah, it's actually really really incredible. Like some of the stuff, like I one of the earliest things I did with it just to see how well it would handle a multi-step task. Right, was I had a video of a car commercial from the 80s that never aired called Big Bill Hells. It's hilarious if you want to look it up. And so I told it, I was like, hey, I got YTDLP on that machine. Just go ahead and find the Big Bill Hells video on YouTube for me and download it, and then send it to me. Save it in my videos folder and then send it to me here in Telegram. And it did all that. It used, the machine. It used the terminal in the background. Used I have a Brave search API key for it, and so I was able to search YouTube for it, found the video, took the URL, passed it into YTDLP with the appropriate things, and then saved it in my videos folder. And then noted it's like, hey, just so you know, this is the WebM version. If you want the MP4 version, I can do that. And I was like, yeah, go and get the MP4 version and get rid of the other one. And so it did. It downloaded the MP4 version and then deleted the old one, and I was like, hey, cool, appreciate you. And I was able to send it to me in Telegram as well. And that was a very simple thing, but yeah, it's pretty incredible.
I think that was the thing I was struggling with. I know I'm horrendously boring when it comes to computing now. But I'm like sitting there thinking, what would I even use this for? Like, I mean, if I still did a lot of like professional IT stuff, I could probably see a lot of uses for it. But yeah, I think just day to day, I'm like, you know. But yeah, it absolutely is amazing the amount of like things it interacts with and like the agents you can set up and the multiple steps. And yeah, I just like binged a couple hours of like videos and reading tutorials and stuff and was just like, yeah, okay, this is what I figured we were heading toward with like assistants at some point, right? Like you think of what, your Google Assistant or your, Alexas and stuff like that. Like that's what I would have thought the logical sort of, progression of it would be, that you'd get to that point. And it's kind of cool now to see that, yeah, okay, finally it's actually happening. So
Yeah.
And if you guys don't know what it is,
that was my thought as well, is like, this is kind of what Google Assistant and Siri and all that were promising. But
to be intelligent enough to just issue a command, right? And to not have to be like, verbose and like, okay, we'll do this and this and that, to just literally say, like, I want to copy this video, and have it just be like, oh, okay, sure, I can do that. With a reasonable amount of certainty that it actually can do that. And then, using Telegram to communicate with it, like that's pretty cool. So.
Right. Yeah. So I don't expose like the web endpoint or anything to the internet, obviously. And if I need it, I could put it over Tailscale if I absolutely needed it. But the way the bot works is like there's a pairing code locally on the machine, and that pairing code is how you would pair it to the bot, right? So, and unless somebody has that pairing code, they can't really interact with the bot. So. But yeah, it works. It works really well. There's some pretty good use cases for it. I also have it connected to some of my other online things. So I use Notion for like note taking and stuff, and it's able to like get information for me, and then create a Notion page for me online and put that information in. There's a lot more it can do than what I'm doing with it right now, but it's pretty incredible. Every day at 6, there's a specific blog that I have an RSS feed for. And so I know the person on the blog doesn't post after 5. So every day at 6 p.m., I have it go out, grab the blog RSS, but it knows, because they have a blog watch like plugin, it knows what I've already been served, what I've already quote unquote read. And so it'll only send me the new stuff that I haven't seen yet every day at 6. And it's like a Telegram message. And there's a lot of really cool stuff to do with it, but you gotta. It's easy to set up, but you still have to kind of know some stuff. And then the guy who created it kind of said that's on purpose. He doesn't want to make it too easy, because then people can shoot themselves in the foot.
Yeah.
But like there are a lot of content creators out there talking about setting it up on an AWS VPS, and I'm like, no, don't do that. What are you doing? Yeah.
EC2, well, and that's why, right?
Yeah.
Because you're going to get that type of person to do that. But and I also like the flexibility of being able to choose your own backend and models and stuff like that, and providers, and it's a great, like, almost like a framework in a way, where it just lets you plug in the pieces you want, and
And so I'll be setting it up on a machine with the 4090, right? So like I'll be running, when I set that up, I'll be running a hybrid model. So like some of the more simple automations can run with the local LLM, so I can save token usage. And then the more complex stuff, I'll probably shove off to Claude. But having the ability to sort of prioritize what's local, what's not, that's pretty handy.
Sure.
I mean, I don't know beyond Claude if you're trying other things, or if you use this for like a multi-model provider.
Yeah, I have an API key for Gemini that I'm using for Nano Banana like image generation stuff. And so like I can have it generate an image, and instead of using Claude, it uses Gemini's Nano Banano thing.
Nice.
So
Cool.
you know that there's that flexibility, right? Whereas if you buy a sort of turnkey solution from a provider, you're relying on them to be good at everything.
Right. I've been using OpenRouter for some things, and I appreciate that they basically just have every possible model you can think of, and it's like a bidding type situation where for the
Yeah,
providers.
you can get some really nice prices on API
I
tokens.
mean, I put $10 on there like 2 months ago. It's like used like $3.
Yeah, so I pay for the Claude Max, which is like the 5x plan. It's like $100 a month, like that. But yeah,
But it's
I
worth
don't
it
think
because
you
you're
need
using
that.
it.
Yeah, I use it, but I don't think most people need that. I think the $20 a month would be just fine for most people. But yeah, like it's pretty incredible. I'll kind of let it do its thing for the next month and see what token usage looks like. There is some concern about like kind of extraneous token usage and stuff, especially when you have a lot of automated jobs. But I think that's where, if you have the hardware and you're able to, I think that's where having the sort of hybrid local and cloud, so like you could probably reduce your frontier model, like Claude, Gemini, OpenAI, whatever, and do a lot of the simpler stuff locally, right?
Yeah, and I think the models themselves seem to be getting a lot better, even like the lower, the smaller models, a bit more specialized.
Right.
Like I've found, that to be the case, that you get a 12 billion or 7 billion, and you're just like, this can't possibly provide a decent result, and you're like, how is it doing this? It shouldn't be able to.
Qwen 3 Next and like a 7 billion Qwen 3 Next is like a pretty solid return of the results. And obviously it's nothing compared to like the trillions or whatever you get out of
No, I
frontier
mean, it can't
model,
be. It's just literally impossible. But
for those types of things, it's if you're just like summarizing pages and articles and stuff, it's great for that, right? And you could fit a 7 billion parameter within like 12 or 16 gig of RAM, so you could have like a base model Mac Mini, that will fit that model
easily. Yep.
I mean, token generation rate might be a little slow, but it's whatever, man. It's about making the computer do the work. You just chill until it tells you.
And it's how fast do you need it back? You know what I mean? I think that's really what if you set your expectation that it's going to take a few seconds, like, but if you expect it to be like real time spit back at you, then I mean, you're going to, so.
But yeah, that's what happens.
Who's that guy?
Oh man, there's a wild Joe has appeared.
Holy cow.
Hey, how are you, Eric?
How's it going, Joe?
I shocked everybody earlier today too, I guess.
Jeez. So we had Rocco and Joe on.
Yeah.
What the heck was I?
I stalk you guys from time to time, but that's about
That's comforting. It's good to know.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Of all the stalkers I've had, Joe, you're my favorite.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
So I was going to say to you, Adam, about this. I can see a lot of very practical uses of this that would just save me a lot of time. I don't, I've been playing around with different large language models and different AI tools, and I find they definitely have value. That's unquestionable. I don't know that they have $20 a month worth of value, if that makes any sense, but they definitely have value. And something that I was thinking that'd be really cool to do with that, and I'm going to dig into the documentation, but I have a ticketing system at work for every time there's an issue. Like, if someone has an issue, they email our ticketing system with whatever the issue is. I'm still trying to get people to do this. Has been a bit of a challenge. But anyway, the idea is I want them to be able to log all of our tickets, and then we use it as a communication tool. So it's actually originally just was a tool for me and my IT tech, and then also I could share it with my boss so he could see kind of what's going on. So I gave him access to it as well. But then we expanded out to the automation side. So if there's like any production on the production side, the OT technology, so the IT and OT, and so now they're using it as well. And so it'd be really great if I could then have it very quickly. It can spit out a spreadsheet, no problem. But if we can spit out a spreadsheet, no problem. It'd be, or I should say a CVS or CSV, comma separated values, whatever that is, CSV. I think it'd be great if I could ask it questions like, how many tickets did we get at this site for this, and then can you break them down by category or whatever? And so it'd be a lot easier to say, if I'm really trying to get another employee, basically is what I'm really, really getting at. And it'd be nice if I could show them the workloads that we're dealing with and everything and so forth. But it's not so much a tool. I don't need KPIs as a cudgel, more as this is how busy we are, and these are the things that are breaking. Maybe to focus attention on maybe correcting the underlying issue as opposed to just firefighting all the time. If that makes any sense. So that's something I was thinking about.
And I think there are already probably better solutions than OpenClaw for that. N8N is one that comes to mind. It's probably a little more enterprisey work focused. I feel like OpenClaw is more of a personal type thing than a business type thing.
Well, it'd more or less be something like, that's why I asked you, like in Teams, if I could then, you said there's a plugin for Teams, then I could just have it so any of us could, like me or my boss, whatever, they could then actually ping the system or ask questions for the system. So rather than ask me questions and then me do the research, I can have it spit out the information at once. That's one I should say.
I guess my comment is like more about there might be some specific work requirements that would be better served by something else. Yeah, sure. Not necessarily the task, but the compliance and like kind of other things. I guess security plugins too, and more enterprisey things. I'm not saying OpenClaw can't do it. I'm just saying I'm not entirely sure that that's the right move, but because it's mostly geared toward like personal tasks and not necessarily enterprise tasks. I think you might run into, I don't know how big of a data set you're working with at work as well. So
we're talking that maybe a couple gig at most.
Oh yeah. We'll talk more about that later. Yeah.
Yeah, but it gives me ideas, things to do. I was actually talking to my predecessor.
Just to know that type of thing is possible, right?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, if it just takes a little bit of time, it gives me back a little bit of time that I can work on things I want to work on. To me, that's the value right there. That's the value add. It's not like that's a shiny toy to play with, which is cool, but actually something that I can utilize for, so to free up the extra time so I can do some more future things. So yeah, that's kind of what I think. Sure. Yeah, it's very cool. That is super cool. Now, and the question is, now that we've heard what Adam's doing, does anybody here, would they want to have their own Jarvis at home that they can have work, do things around the house? Hey, Jarvis, can you check to make sure the lights are off and the cubicle lamps? Yeah, or whatever. Computer.
No, Dave.
I'm sorry, Dave, I cannot do that.
Yeah,
that's actually part of it too. Is like, as someone like myself, I've horrible ADHD. I might know a bunch of random stuff in my head, but like remembering to do things is tough, right? So having like a calendar notification that's like, hey, at 8 a.m. you need to do this. Well, if I dismiss the calendar notification, it doesn't know whether I did it or not, right? But having the bot like talk to me and be like, hey, did you do it yet? I'm like, no, I didn't, and like it could keep nagging me until I tell it, yes, I did it, And so like that kind of thing could help people with that sort of executive function issues.
Or did you get your taxes done yet? Hey, did you get your taxes done yet?
No, and I'll thank you not to ask, Mr. Bot.
Good times.
And he's incriminating evidence.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And there was I can't remember where, if it was a podcast or something I was listening to. But the discussion that was being made there was that a lot of these engineers don't really know how the AI is as intelligent as it is. Like they're just kind of trying to understand it, sort of in the same way that when the internet became a thing, a lot of people don't understand lot of aspects of what it could become. And so I wonder if I guess I wonder if it's a machine that's so complicated that it could end up just going rogue at any point in time, or you know what I'm saying? Like how do you ensure that it stays nicely
Perfect plot
confined?
for an enemy.
I've learned to stop worrying and love the bomb.
That's probably one of the best answers ever. How? Geez, Adam must be as old as I am. I know he's not, but.
Best movies
Yeah.
ever, by the way.
Yeah, it is. I haven't watched it with my kids yet. It's a good movie. My favorite line in there is when they're in the war room, like, gentlemen, no fighting here. This is the war room.
The war room.
It's just so funny.
I'm not saying we wouldn't get our hair mussed. Millions of people dead. I'm not saying we wouldn't get our hair mussed.
Yeah, Deploribus Rex says, Helperbot, you really should be doing your taxes, Dave, and not watching Linux Saloon on YouTube right now. Yeah, or you can do both at the same time, multitask. Especially for ADD, it works out well.
You're right. Well, since you can't watch Linux Saloon, you go do the taxes. I'll be here. Plausible deniability, and I get to hang out.
Here you go, Helperbot. This is my login to TurboTax. Can you fill it out for me? Yeah, that would, I don't know. It's crazy times. Guess we'll see how it all kind of shakes out in the end. If we're around.
You'll know we'll be in trouble when all of a sudden you'll hear, breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's the old joke with the convertible and the, pardon me for saying so, the joke with the blonde and the driving the car. He used to say, it's a humorous joke. It's nothing against blondes.
Yeah. All right. Well, Adam, let us know if your bot takes over and thinks you start doing things.
Just, get a collection of questions that only I would know, just in case.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll let you know.
Yeah, I was thinking, what was the? Have you seen the? There's a service out there where AIs rent humans. Have you seen that? Yeah.
I almost made a bad joke about that, but no, I have not.
Yeah, you can. I think it's like Rent a Human. I think is what it's called.
Sure, it's not The Onion.
No, rentahuman.ai. It's hire humans for AI agents. Yeah, nothing dystopian there.
Yeah, not
so
at all.
AIs
right?
basically need you to carry
I
out
like
tasks
being a battery
because it can't do these, physical things. So, if you didn't like your human manager, your AI manager will put you to work too.
Could be a step
I'm
up.
not sure I'll notice the difference.
Until you told me.
I mean, maybe it's a way to get a little bit of a side hustle. But I put that there in the chat. Maybe put it in the wrong chat. I don't know. Anyway.
No, you get it. Yeah.
So, not creepy at all.
Not at all.
Nope. We're serving the machines. Maybe we have been. Anyway, I guess it's time to get to the straw poll. How did that straw poll shake out? So it's how many partitions does your main Linux computer have? Eris, if you want to take over or not.
Let me check on that.
Excuse me.
Yeah, I thought it said main drive initially.
Yeah,
I have
main
so
drive.
many disks. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I have a crazy amount otherwise.
I specifically say main drive because people have multiple drives even in laptops now. So
Yep.
just to, so it's easier.
Oh, okay.
The number one answer with is 3 partitions, followed by 21%. Oh, that was 32%. Second place, 21%, 2 partitions. And 1 partition and 4 partitions are tied with 14%. 5 partitions is 7%. More than 6 partitions, 11%. And nobody picked 6 partitions exactly, and nobody said, I don't know.
Are you
Okay.
talking partitions on a single drive, or you're talking all inclusive drives?
Your main drive, and this includes your EFI partition and swap if you have that as a partition.
Yeah, okay, so 3 for me. I got the EFI, and then I have a swap, and then the main data set. So, yeah, I wonder how you'd have 1. I wonder how 1 would work.
With the master boot record, the old system,
Oh,
you can
okay.
have 1 EXT, and that's it.
Okay.
I don't know. You could boot EFI and then have all your others on all other disks. See that? But it would just be EFI.
Huh. Yeah, yeah, I guess. Then I guess you have a swap file. So yeah, that would work, I suppose.
Every
And
time I make a new folder, it's mapped to a partition.
there were some comments on this. Somebody said 1 LOL, and then somebody said Windows creates minimum of 3 partitions, 4 if there's also a recovery partition. Anyone who's dual booting Linux with Windows will have minimum of 4. And I guess somebody said also 5 partitions. That's the answer.
Now, what if you had 2 drives, but they were, is that RAID 1 or RAID 0 where it uses, like, expands it? I can't remember now. Which
You're talking about the LVM or whatever what is that called?
Yeah, kind of like LVM.
It just
So yeah, I think
Yeah,
RAID
mirror.
0.
Do BTRFS subvolumes count as partitions?
I wouldn't
No,
count them partitions.
I always
Yeah.
get those backwards.
They're
I was just
sub-volumes,
talking
but
like
they're not
sector
partitions.
cylinder head boundary partitions.
Yeah, I never looked at Fedora that close. I got 3 on here. I've got an EFI, an extended boot, and then I've got the main partition. I've had 2 in the past with some distros like this, where especially when you do, like you just said, need a swap file.
I think they're gonna do away with the ext boot for Fedora, and it's gonna go as a sub-volume for BTRFS. That's the next version. I think they're doing that now.
Sweet. It's been the Butterfest for everything has been working great for me for probably about a decade now, I think. Decade? I don't know. I can't remember.
It took them forever to get BTRFs going. That's why everyone stole their code so they could do how was it, the NAND drives.
I don't know.
But we all thank them. We all thank SUSE for doing it.
Good times. So, Eris, where did you vote for yours? How many drives? Or how many partitions on your drive?
I put 3, I think.
Okay. Jinda. I'm curious about Jinda. He's kind of a wild card. He can go one way or the other.
There's 2 partitions on this drive.
Okay. So probably what? Your EFI boot and then your
Yep, you got it.
I have 5. Yeah, first one's EFI. Then I have I don't know what this is. I have a little ext4, 17 megabytes. No idea.
17
Windows
megabytes.
11, and then a ext4 system, and then I have a 1 terabyte external separate disk, and that's a single partition. So 5 in total. My desktop has 5 disks in it. So probably like, I don't know how many partitions. Many.
Wow. That's like a
Yeah, I've
super
got
machine.
4 in here. And
It's actually a bunch of like leftover disks from other computers.
Oh, okay.
I just kept, every time I would run low on space, I'm like, just throw another disk in there.
Have you ever done I think, is it JBOD? Have you ever tried that? Just a bunch of drives or something like that? Just to.
I've heard of it, but no, I haven't tried it.
Yeah, I've got the /data/data2. keeps going.
Yeah.
Keeps going up.
So would you call that a RAID without the RAID?
Yeah, there's no fail. There's nothing RAID about it. They're all just a bunch of, and honestly, there's nothing on that machine that isn't already backed up to other places. So, it's just raw space for stuff. I have a drive that's 1 terabyte just for games, and that, even that
Same.
a terabyte honestly is what 4 or 5 games these days. It's really not a lot of space.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, Steam Drive.
yeah, and so I have one of those, and then just data from like video files from video production, stuff like that. And most of it's just spinning Rust, honestly, because I don't need it to be particularly fast.
But the reason why I said that RAID without RAID is because originally RAID used to mean redundant array of inexpensive disks. So
Yeah, not inexpensive anymore.
Yeah, depending on what you get.
It'd be hard to set up RAID that way.
Sure would. I was curious though. My workstation that I have in my lab, it has, so inside my Commodore 64, the shell, that has 3 drives in there, and then I have my external drive as well, with the floppy drive lookalike thing. So that has 4 drives in it. Doesn't have the 6 that Eric has, but working on it, I guess. All right.
It's just a huge tower. That's why I have the space to just shove them all in there.
Please tell me it's an old PS2 tower that you've just kept updating.
It's 10 years old, maybe 12 years old, but it's a full ATX, I think. It's huge.
You remember the PS2s from like the 90s? Is it 90s PS2s?
Mm-hmm.
You got a bunch of great.
IBMs?
Not the
PS2.
IBM PS2.
PS2 is the USB design. PS2 is like USB 0 or something like that, because it's just the same thing as without the clock, and USB kept speeding the clock.
What I mean is,
at least tell me
PS2 computer or the PS2 as in PlayStation 2.
The PS2 computer from IBM, that has that specific
that was
look
early,
about it.
Yeah, late 80s, early 90s. Yeah.
Yeah. With microchannel instead of PCI or ISA.
I at least want to picture Eric's computer using a mouse and keyboard by a PS2.
Did they have VESA local bus in those? I don't remember.
In the PS2s?
Yeah.
The IBM PS2 for clarification? I don't know. I don't know if they did or not.
Yeah, all I can remember is the silliness of microchannel.
Yeah. Well, what can you do? All right. Well, I guess we go ahead and hop on over to the news. So we were talking earlier today on the Linux Saloon early edition about the expansion, essentially, of Linux. So here's the article I want to talk here first is, now all your Fedora folks, I'm sure you're gonna be excited about this one. But it's the Bazzite triples its user base in 8 months as gamers seek a Windows alternative. So I'm going to go ahead and read portions of this and then probably shoot for some interaction here. So it says Bazzite users jumped from 20,000 to 68,000 in 8 months, 68,200 in 8 months, more than tripling. Bazzite runs many games via Proton, making Linux a viable gaming alternative to Windows. Adoption spiked around October 2025 after Windows 10 EOL and handheld demos. So people began to wake up to the idea that in some situations, installing a gaming-oriented Linux distro will give you a better experience than Windows 11. Once pinned as the one operating system you don't want to use if you care about gaming, Linux has since made leaps and bounds with tech like Proton, which allows games to run on the FOSS operating system without the game's developers lifting a finger. Bazzite is among more common recommendations for people looking to move away from Windows. It's a top-tier choice for both desktops and handhelds, and we've seen people replace Windows 11 on both to move away from Microsoft's ecosystem. In fact, the official Bazzite website is reporting that it has over triple the number of users it had this time in June 2025. So they're clearly doing something right. And there's a little graph that it shows, but it's going up, kind of drops a little bit, then kind of at a steady climb. But so someone sounded the alarm over the Linux subreddit that Bazzite user base has been looking very healthy lately. Interesting that the chart they posted showed 67,100 users, but when I checked a few hours later, it had grown to 68,200. So you can check out the snapshot there. And then, so it looks like basically it's going up and up and up. So there's links to like the Bazzite website, and then it uses the DNF count me to track the number of users using Bazzite. And so that's the way it's looking here. So I guess then the question there is, do you think that these users, this is opinion, speculation, I don't know. Do you think these users are actually users coming from Windows, or do you think these are more are cannibalizing from other Linux distributions?
I think a fair bit of them are actually handheld gamers.
They're all Steam Deck.
Yeah, like Steam Deck, ROG Ally, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So
Okay.
what's that other one? Lenovo one.
Mm-hmm.
The Legion Go.
Legion Go.
Legion Go.
Leggy.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, this operating system was leaning towards modeling towards the handheld gaming system. Now, that doesn't mean it is or isn't. I just thought that's what it was for.
Yeah, I think that's how I'm using it. I got a 1X player, the little smaller one. It's great for travel. Truthfully, it's not as nice as a Steam Deck to use because my big sausage fingers have a bit of a hard time like hanging on to it for an extended period of time. And the truth is, I'm playing the original Legend of Zelda on NES with it, so it's not like I'm really taxing it, but it lasts basically a week with the way I use it, so I don't have to charge it very much. Probably not the best gamer here, but I don't know, I guess this is all speculation at this point. So based on the growth curve, what do you see this doing? Because I read that that Microsoft is recognizing that there's a lot of dissatisfaction in the Windows 11 and the choices they're making, but yet they seem to be doubling down on it. So do you think this is going to be a continued growth? And do you think that this is actually going to make Linux significantly larger by the end of the year, or do you think it's just going to kind of peak at about the 6-7% or 5 to 7% somewhere there in that range?
I don't know.
No
I
clue.
mean, again, it's until they start selling it in a store, or there's enough demand on the gamer side of things, but then you're talking about like kind of home build stuff, and that kind of sucks right now because of memory and hardware and everything. I mean, I don't know, but I guess people have to get new computers if they need them.
Here's an interesting thought. So my nephew recently just purchased a pre-built machine, and obviously prices on building it yourself are kind of absurd, so that was a little out of his price range. But the thing that I noted with him is that he looked at the price even for the pre-built, which was a good deal for what it got, and he was like, I wouldn't feel comfortable putting all this money into it and then trying to build it. You guys and I, we could probably build our own machines. We've probably done it several times, whatevs. But I think a lot of people aren't really willing to tinker with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And like not just like, oh, your grandma or whatever. No, I mean, I think like a lot of gamers, a lot of just regular folks just don't really want to do
There's
that.
a risk, you drop
and so-
a processor in there and screw it up. Yeah.
right, but even beyond that, like just installing Linux, right? Like they might be concerned whether truthfully
I
or
see what you're
not
saying.
about
Yeah.
damaging their machine with Linux. And then, they're like, it's too expensive to buy a new one. I'm just going to leave it on Windows, right? Like there would be a hesitancy there because of the price of everything.
Yeah, I was working with a secondhand store, and they get a lot of used computers from companies, from people, just whatever, and then they resell them. And I was trying to get them to do like Steam computers. See if you get one up, like put a nice graphic card in them to get them up to do level of Steam just to jump people into it. And that would be with like a SteamOS or I guess Bazzite if it's good for that. I have not tried that yet. But I was trying to push it in that way. And yeah, that would take the normal user out of it, put someone who knew how to mess with computers in the center.
I think to your point, Adam, it's not so much that a new user be afraid of damaging their computer as much as they might be afraid of voiding their warranty because they just took Windows out. And then if they don't like Linux or they have trouble getting it in there or whatever, and then, they put it, either get somebody to load it back on or whatever, and then they worry about, whether they just won't have any support or, I mean, I don't know. But I mentioned earlier on the early show today, I saw an interview with Linus Torvalds in the last day or so, and it was basically he was talking about when he created the system for himself. That's what it was originally for. He said, and then when it kind of started growing a little bit of legs, and I'm paraphrasing, he had hopes that it would have been, one of the major contenders. Now, granted, it's in all the enterprise stuff. That's fine. So it is a major contender there. But when we're talking desktop specifically, he said the same thing to the point that, he was hoping, unless you get it on a shelf as a ready to buy, that it's being promoted that way and advertised that way, which we even talked about that many years ago. It's probably not going to make the strides that it should. Although now, because, he says, yes, you got Lenovo, you got Dell, you got, some of the bigger companies that are offering it, but you still have to know enough to go and ask for it and be willing to try it. Where, if it's being promoted, it's a whole different thing. So maybe with this so-called trend going, there may be eventually some changes coming like that. I don't know. Right now, when you really think about it, Microsoft in theory controls the secure boot, and the firmware hardware basically, or software. Let's call it BIOS is an operating system for hardware. So I don't know. I do think that you're going to still see more migration over to it if people can't either, number one, afford a computer, or they're just curious, or things like that. I don't necessarily think we're going to go really backwards in a big drop, but I also don't think that it's going to be this just drastic climb. If Microsoft keeps up the business model, the operating system itself as a whole, I've said this for years too, is not a bad problem. It's the business model that's driving it that's the problem. And when you're forcing AI, or you're forcing online accounts, or you're installing Windows with BitLocker already enabled, and then somebody locks themselves out of their system, is those frustrations that are driving people away from it. Not so much the operating system itself, but it's the model that they've created.
I think a further thought that I've got is that there's the more recent increases in usage, I think, has also been driven by the large amount of content creators who are jumping on board and talking about this. So, and even that extends also to the handhelds outside of the Steam Deck, of course. But with people trying something like Bazzite on their handhelds, I think that's been driven a lot by people they watch, people they listen to. But I also don't think that that's sustainable either, because with content creation being the way it is, people will move on obviously to the next thing, and I think that would probably potentially subside, if not just sort of plateau. I think there has to be another sort of trigger for that to happen, for there to be another increase. I don't know what that might be, but I think there'd be something else happen with Windows or whatever.
Yeah, we discussed that earlier today too, about the content creators like PewDiePie and Gamers Nexus and all these other guys. So I one thing I did point out earlier too is I don't necessarily agree with these quote unquote Linux challenges, these 30-day things or whatever. Anybody that truly wants to give this a try, you either need to have a secondary machine with some dedication time to it and things like that, and be willing to truly, learn it, and one way you learn is by breaking it, and either trying to fix it or get help. But when you're talking the average user, I think it's probably easier for an average user. When I say average user, let me back up a second. I think if you took somebody that was elderly, that never really had a computer and decided they wanted to get one just to surf the internet, things like that, and didn't have a muscle memory same age bracket, a little older, has been on a computer, and then they're trying to figure out why they can't install the typical exe application like they would on Windows. So it's changing that muscle memory too. But the TPM thing, I don't know. I mean, obviously the operating system works without that, but the protocol was put in place for safety and security reasons more than anything else. But I don't know. I think it's at this point it's kind of like anybody's guess where it's going to go.
Yep.
As
I don't
enthusiasts,
know.
we
Go
obviously
ahead.
care. Sorry, Nate. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, as enthusiasts, we obviously care, but I would still say that the vast majority of people do not care about the OS they use. They couldn't give two hoots about it. Like, someone will buy, for example, a Mac, right? They're not really necessarily buying the Mac for Mac OS. They're buying the Mac for what it can do for them, right? And also, same thing with Windows machines and whatnot. To have to go to that extra hoop to install another operating system always seems a bit a step too far for most normies that I know. So you're talking about having to blow away the thing that your machine came with, and like as Joe said, potentially wreck a warranty depending on what that says. I think someone who's just sort of stumped up some money for a machine is not going to do that. They're more interested in what the machine can do for them, and that's mostly it. Let alone sort of finding the time to actually explore this stuff, like we have in our time, and break things and learn things. I think most people have just way too much going on in their lives to do that.
That 20,000 to 70,000 jump, that's definitely worth the look at. What caused it? Like the handhelds. That's something.
Yeah, there's something that's causing that for sure. But whether it's sustainable, I guess, is the other thing to question.
The other point that was raised today, or that I had raised too, and I use my wife as the example all the time, the poor gal, but she's been on Linux starting about 6 years now, and she's kind of typical of a lot of people. If they have an issue, the first thing they want to blame is the operating system. It doesn't matter what they're on, and instead of looking at, like, if a website won't load, maybe there's a permission you got to give it, or if you got an ad blocker, or if you got whatever pop-up blocker, things like that. So I think there's a natural tendency for that. And you're right when you say most people wouldn't care until they have a problem, and then it's like, then it's a big catastrophe for them. And I'll give you an example too from a Windows standpoint. Like last night, the gal, my wife had her awards dinner, and the gal that was doing a presentation, she's as sharp as they come. But when you're on the hot seat in front of people, she couldn't all of a sudden get the audio going. And I got up, and it was just basically, it was muted. The slide bar was down. It wasn't, you didn't see the full mute, but it was down enough to where you couldn't hear anything. And I told her later on in the evening, I said, that's typical of any OS. Or how many times, like today, right, Nate? You're muted. You're muted. Sound is the one thing that seems to get everybody. I don't care who it is or what it is. It's the simple things. And that's what I've always said too. The most errors are between the keyboard and seat. So, yeah.
What the other thing too is, when things go wrong, and I've been dealing with a lot of Windows system failures at work lately, where the only solution that I have been able to successfully find is the nuke and pave. Just wipe Windows, reinstall it to fix it after the latest. Is it the January? I just said this earlier too. January 27th update, or was it 28th? But anyway, and it's causing a lot of machines to become very slow and sluggish. And then also the constant changing of specific policies for how things are handled. Like, I don't know if you're aware of this, but if you download a PDF from an email attachment, it's immediately blocked for previewers. Like, no, the Windows Explorer preview will not work, and so there's not really a good workaround, but it's causing angst in at work right now, and there's some other issues of things just being slow. And so anyway, there's always a thing that's breaking, and I think there's continually built up frustration. For some, it's probably never going to be enough because they got their phone as their refuge, they're refuse too, but refuge. And then for others, it's it comes to a point where they get curious and they want to do something. They want to do something different, I think. And then those that actually do make that leap and install their operating system, a lot of gamers are already tinkerers anyway. They they rice their systems, they do a lot of things, they mess with it. There's all sorts of things that gamers know to do to extract just a little bit more power out of their system, and they reinstall their operating systems. They're generally, they're messing in the BIOS, they're overclocking, they're doing all kinds of things. So installing Bazzite is not going to be a step too far for those kind of gamers. How many of those kind of gamers are out there? That remains to be seen. With the chip shortages that we're having again, which seems like it's like every 5 years we have a different sort of chip shortage. Is that how it goes now? I don't know. That's what's going to come from that, but here we are. And I do also think, like, I'm wondering, because FPS is an issue, frames per second, the rates. I think there's, going from Windows 10 to Windows 11, there was I want to say it was like a 10 to 11% hit in frame rate. And for serious gamers, that is an issue. And that's part of the complaints for why they're switching over to Linux. So
but even that stuff, Nate, if you watch the content creators themselves, the guys that really know what they're doing to run through a system, each game performs differently too on each operating system. And a lot of times it could be very well if you have apples to apples settings and you see a difference, that's one thing. But if you can't do a clean apples to apples and then you're tweaking the game or whatever, that's why I was saying earlier today, there's so many variables that control this stuff too. So what I get for FPS on maybe let's say Halo, and you're playing Halo, and I have one experience and you have another. It could be your settings, not necessarily just the hardware difference too. It could be how you've got the game optimized for what you're doing. I'll give you another example too. When you talk about Steam, there's my grandson loves BeamNG, and we were having some really horrible time. And that game wasn't really optimized very well, even to run on Proton. And lately, it's been getting better. And then I happened to go into the Proton DB thread and look in there, and there was a little boot up script that they said run this and try this, and that thing loads better than some native programs. So again, it just comes down to sometimes you got to tweak stuff, and anybody that says you always have to tweak it on Linux, I don't necessarily agree with that, because you have to do some of this stuff even on Windows too. Now granted, we're talking the difference between native games and non-native games, but even on Windows you still can have to go in there and maybe set whether you're running something on ultra, instead of ultra, you're running it on maybe medium settings for it to perform better or whatever. It's what part of the sacrifice do you want to give up that you're really going to notice. So
Yeah, a lot of games also know the hardware too, because I from what I understand, between AMD and NVIDIA, what games run better on what hardware. That now I'm getting a little bit outside of my my range of knowledge. This would be more like Adam would probably be able to answer this question better. But gamers though, I think got to give them a lot of credit for PC gamers, I should say, the hardcore PC gamers, and they're not a small subset because you go into a Best Buy, they have a section just dedicated for those tinkerers, which is cool to see that it's like the old Radio Shack is sort of back, not really a piece of it, a slice of it in Best Buy. So, so there is a market for it. I don't know how big that market is, but I think that that market is significant enough that Best Buy is catering to that market now. And I guess it remains to be seen what will come of that. But here's another, just this is turning into more of an open mic night thing, but this is just, I'm just, cut me off if you think we should get on to what the UK government's doing. So with the shortages of chips that we're having right now, do you think that increases the likelihood of more people going to Linux? I've been thinking about this, and I'm thinking about writing a blathering on my site about this. But because of the chip shortages, and you want to extract every bit of performance out of your hardware that you have, because you buying RAM, and even Western Digital says, hey, we're tapped out. We can't actually physically make any more drives for this year. Do you think that increases the likelihood of greater adoption for things like Bazzite or whatever, because people are going to want to extract that performance out of their hardware that they have now?
You asking in general or something specific?
Yeah, in general. Mm-hmm. Whoever wants to jump in on that, like Jinda, I'm sure wants to jump in on that. Like,
yeah, I definitely think that people will.
You think people will, Adam?
If you got hardware, okay, and you want to use it, you can't go back to Windows 10. You have to run Windows 11, so you have two choices: either try to figure out how to get Windows 11 to work on old hardware, or just run some Linux operating system. I mean, I think it's easier to run Linux, isn't it?
I think you're going to see more people stay on either their existing hardware if it's somewhat newer, or one of the things that actually they've said is starting to happen now is they're actually starting to produce some AM4 platforms again, because people are kind of going backwards because they can't maybe afford to upgrade to the AM5, and the system they have might be older and they would still like to upgrade. So now they're doing some AM4 platform. They had cut production on all of that, and now that's supposed to be kind of starting up again. You're still going to see some shortages with that too, but I think right now most people are either going to stay in place with what they have, and as long as Windows is working for them, I don't see everybody just jumping ship for it, unless there's just a curiosity thing. And if they start seeing all these, again, getting back to the creators or stuff that's in the blogs or news or wherever they're hearing it, that, you can get some added, frame performance or whatever, they might do it out of curiosity or just to try. But again, that's probably, like you just said too, Nate, it might be more the enthusiast side of it. So go ahead, Adam. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that's going to be interesting to see, again, in that regard, what happens, what shakes out from there. There was some other speculation that because of the shortages and the lack of supply, it could also mean the end of like home PCs as well. Like I mean, that's probably some more doom and glooming.
Never happened.
But I don't know.
Not in our lifetime.
Yeah, I hope not. Yeah. I mean, because I enjoy it.
It's going to cut back. Yeah, it's going to cut back for sure, at least for now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's if you can't get something, that's one thing. But to sit there, because you know how many years we heard, oh, the desktop's going away, but yeah, you see all these manufacturers still making all kinds of cases and all kinds of coolers and all kinds of,
Hmm.
that in itself would tell you they're not going to invest the millions and whatever dollars that they've got invested in these to produce these products. But if you have one component or two components in there that you just can't get or can't afford to get, but again, it's like anything else, this AI, until it plays out, and if we see a bubble burst and all that, that's what's going to tell you where this is going to go, and we're fighting an AI center that wants to come in here right now too. We don't want it here, but we'll see what happens.
See, I would say yes to the AI center only because when the bubble bursts, all that cheap hardware will be very easy and convenient to get.
Well, unfortunately, it's
Sometime
going
in the
on
future.
the oldest and original GM site that was here, General Motors operating
Mhm.
plant, which had a lot of contamination underneath it that has to be cleaned up first. And that's the reason they're looking at this, because they're willing to get the bill passed along to somebody else. But the truth of the matter is most AI centers are 100 megawatt. They're talking 800 megawatt here. So that gives you an idea of how many buildings that could potentially wind up sitting empty here instead of doing a mixed use or something like that. So, and it's right in the middle of what would be a neighborhood. There is some industrial stuff on the south side where this is at, but when GM moved in, they had a bunch of homes built for the employees there. So now it's surrounded by residential. And to listen to that, and whatever noise it's going to produce and things like that, and then the infrastructure it's going to have to be put in, it's quite a big undertaking.
And
And I still think that people do not realize how much these chips, everybody thinks of them as just for computers, but it's not just for computers. It's in everything. I mentioned that earlier today too. It's in your smartphones, your TVs, your smart refrigerators, your cars. Right now we've got a surplus of cars, but if that starts ever getting short again or whatever, or you got to repair a part and you need a chip for it and you can't get it, here we go. You're going to get vehicles sitting for months again.
to rewind what you said on the infrastructure, what's bad is the data centers, they're making the citizens pay for it. That's pretty bad. Like some old lady paying $25 added to her electric bill. Not like pennies, it's $25.
Well, the good news is there's been some pushback on that in some municipalities
Yeah.
where they are making the data centers pay. Here's the thing: the fact of the matter is,
Then they come back with maintenance costs and they're hitting again. Then you got to fight that.
right?
At some point, they may make it through. It's like what was that Life Finds a Way thing?
Yeah, life finds a way.
AI finds a way.
Well, I mean,
I actually have good news on that front.
Oh,
Supposedly, the AI companies have promised that any raise in electricity, they will cover. So they promise that. So you don't have to worry about that no more.
They've already
So that's
paid. It's already sad. At least here in Tulsa, not here, but in Tulsa, they already made them pay $25. Too bad.
our energy company here was saying that it would not be any increase to us, yet all the files just today I saw where they were calling out, the lawmakers are calling out, say we want the pages unredacted. So they're presenting everything that's redacted. So what does that tell you? It's well, they're basically going to tell you what you want to hear, and then when you're in
Yeah.
it and you can't do anything about it, we're already seeing
Yeah.
increases, and they haven't even built it here yet.
Yeah, the general increase is already built in, where it's already too late. Now the future increases. That's maybe.
so this is just tangentially related, but the solar push from about like 5-6 years ago, 4. Well, the great thing about the solar push is, you could cut your electric bill down, and so they haven't raised the rates on they have, but the increase in cost. My electric bill has gone up substantially in the last few years, but they have this new line in there called like delivery fee. Have you seen that? So they're charging to delivery that it's a fixed cost, or I think it's a fixed cost, and so they can get their money back. So I'm still producing most of my electricity, but my bill's gone up because of delivery charges. So anyway, I think that was really
we
great.
had worked with them on doing like alternate energy. It's like, well, you talk with us on alternate energy, but they don't even add it. It's like no lines, not a single line in there about that. At least here.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got a solar farm going in over here right next to a farm where we actually buy their organic stuff. And there is a cost, and there's a cost to the farmer that sold it. There's no cost. He's making all kinds of money, when he sells or rents or whatever. But in this case, they want to buy it. The cost is to the loss of the farmland that you're never going to be able to build on for decades again, and that kind of thing. And those costs, no matter what they say, are always passed down one way or another. They are.
How they define it is like, is that solar? Is it still going to be charged a different way? But yeah, I would love to have the solar, but yeah, they didn't even talk about it.
Well, what I said
And
is,
you can
okay,
have
you gotta
farming
have
and
to-
solar too. So that'd be
Well, and solar, that would be the perfect thing to put over that GM plant's slab that's over there. It's got it encapsulated. Put it over there instead of taking up some farmland and let it serve that way, right?
Yeah, I would
solar
say,
Concrete
roadways.
garages.
yeah, put
Yeah, the
them
solar
on.
roadways. I want to see those.
Yeah, put them on garages. Put them on industrial buildings. Put them on. If you put them on there instead of
Right.
on farmland, that would be smart. At least I think it'd be.
God's not making any more land, so I mean,
Well, if you go
Solar
like in-
roadways could have, like the cops were getting hit or whatever. The solar roadways could have alerts to the cop that they're going to be hit by a car that's coming towards them. And it's also not only an alerting system; it also charges the city around it. So.
But the way they plow snow here, you'd have that solar roadway just tore up after a year in Michigan.
Oh, we have some of the heating roads here. Yeah, I have them heated as well, so you don't need to plow. It just melts away.
Oh. Somehow Michigan would mess it up. I don't know. I guarantee it. Michigan would mess it up. Yeah. Rona the Dolphin says factories, even empty ones, cost too much. Farmland is cheapest land around. Yeah, that's true and unfortunate. Until we run out of it. Yup. And actually, there was another comment from Rona the Dolphin I wanted to get to here. He says, my son was looking at switching to Linux for the FPS, and because Windows 11 kept wanting to move his home folder to the OneDrive, for convenience. So,
if you remember, that was one of the requirements for you to keep using Windows 10. Use it as a backup to SkyDrive or something like that, or OneDrive.
Really,
that was one of the things they. If you wanted to keep using Windows 10, you would use OneDrive as a backup or something like that. And then there was other provisions, but that was one of the provisions.
You're talking extending the service past the end of life. Yeah, that was one of the things they were offering, is either you paid $30 for the year or you backed up all of your data off your drive onto OneDrive, and then they would have given you the extra year.
I'm sorry, but that just seems really like terrible business practice. I mean, that's a reason right there to dump Windows. Just doing that kind of malarkey. There's another word I wanted to use, but it's a family-friendly show. Yeah, good times. Well, speaking of other irritating, we have to have some good tech news here. But some other irritating tech news. Not sure if you remember some time ago, F-Droid, whether Google is going to mandate having mandatory developer registration to be able to develop onto on Android. And so it's an open letter opposing Android developer verification. So this is data back from February 24th. So it was wrote about back in September in F-Droid and Google Developer Registration Decree. Google plans to enforce mandatory developer registration as a requirement for building and distributing Android applications worldwide. Android, currently an open platform where anyone can develop and distribute applications freely, is to become a lockdown platform requiring that developers everywhere register centrally with Google in order to be able to distribute their software. This applies regardless to whether your software is distributed commercially on a competitive app like the Samsung Galaxy Store, or on non-commercial community app repositories like F-Droid, even offering your app as a direct download from web page. In all these cases, installing and launching any application on an Android-certified device, which constitutes over 95% of all Android-compatible devices outside of China, will phone home to Google to verify that the developer and the application have been approved. After an initial public outcry, Google rushed to assure developers that sideloading is not going away. This, as we pointed out, in what we talk about when we talk about sideloading is simply untrue. Sideloading, their pejorative term for the direct and that's funny. A pejorative term for the direct and unintermediated installation of software of your choosing on the device that you own is indeed going away if they follow through on their threat. Furthermore, future App Store competitors, like be they commercial or not or nonprofit, will forever be disadvantaged by their developers being required to sign up with Google, bound to their voluminous, non-negotiable, and ever-changing terms and conditions, pay a fee, upload government-issued identification, and register each and every one of their applications with Google. But but didn't Google back down the developer verification? There was a brief sigh of relief in November when Google offered vague assurances in a blog post that they were going to design some advanced flow that might permit experienced users to accept the risk of installing software that isn't verified. Some commenters went so far as to claim victory and assert that Google has backed down from the program altogether. Such triumphalism was premature and ununiformed. We have since learned that no such advanced flow will be made available prior to the September lockdown. They purported by gathering any feedback on the design of this feature, but this is also untrue. No such feedback has been sought for anyone outside of Google. Let's see. So Google's official an unambiguous stance remains, according to their developer link page, states that starting in September 2026, Android will require all apps to be registered by verified developers in order to be installed on certified Android devices. Google has refused repeated requests for concrete information about what form their so-called advanced flow will take, but it is reasonable to predict that if and when it ever is made available at some future point after the lockdown takes effect, it will maximally obscure the high friction such uncertainty makes it impossible to assess the viability of any advanced flow as a workaround for preserving software freedom, and so we must disregard it as it has been demonstrated and vetted by the community. So goes on and says, silence is consent, resistance is not futile. According to the official timeline, Google intends to open their developer registration console in March. This is the first phase of lockdown where developers are to be offered the dubious privilege of paying Google so they can surrender their government identification, register their applications, and become forever locked into Google's terms and conditions for app distribution. So I unequivocally advise against signing up for this program now or ever. But mere inaction is insufficient to offer meaningful resistance to the program. Individual developers must also become advocates for software freedom through their own projects, through blog posts, through social media, and by contacting their regional regulators. It's only through developer complacency that Google lockdown on Android can succeed. So FDR stands in solidarity as signatory to the open letter published today at keepandroidopen.org/open-letter. We join such champions of free software and free speech as Electronic Frontier Foundation and Free Software Foundation Europe, the Software Freedom Conservancy, and dozens of other organizations around the world in repudiating Google's overreach. So we implore Google to listen to the overwhelming opposition to this program and change its course. The Android Developer Verification Program is a grievous breach of trust with the free and open source community that helped propel Android to the dominant position it holds today in the mobile computing world. And there's still time to regain trust in this as the faithful steward of Android, and to work together with the community to seek sound and measured approaches to improving security to the platform for users everywhere. But that time, as can be watched on the countdown at the Google keepandroidopen.org, is quickly running out. So, thoughts on what's going to happen here with Android? And basically, they're Applifying Android. Is what it feels like.
Yeah, I agree. It said they kept sideloading, which I guess is okay. But yeah, go ahead.
No, I have a long answer, so please continue.
Oh, I was wanting to try it out, finally jump into it because I had another TV in the room, and now Google TV is pretty common. I was like, oh, I'll try the Java thing. So I'll be trying out the Google TV apps, and I'll have to sideload first, and then you upload it to them, and then they verify it. I'll see what I have to do on that. So I can't give you full circle confirmation on what I think of it, but I'll be going through that. Go ahead.
This is the type of article that kind of drives me crazy because it's a lot of conjecture, a lot of philosophical argument. It's a lot of like assumption of things, and it's also extremely one-sided. And so that's fine because they have a perspective and they're prerogative and they're voicing that and pursuing it. But it's also makes me wonder, like, is Google doing this truly just to lock things down? Whenever they're saying you could still sideload, what they're really saying is we don't want unsigned packages. And is it the worst thing in the world to not allow random people to download random APKs from who knows where that are not in any way verified at all, and just letting them? Now, I think, of course, yes, for the 0.01% of people who care enough about something like this, that there should be an admin option or developer option to allow you to install whatever the heck you want. But I think, first of all, F-Droid, I mean, what percentage of Android users are using something like F-Droid? I mean, you're talking not even a blip, like not even a recognizable amount of people, I would gather. I mean, I use it, but I use it because I want to use open source software. And it's just a convenient way to do it, rather than go get the APKs myself and have to deal with updating them and stuff. In all the years I've been using Android, there have been a small handful of times where I felt the need to install an APK from some random place, because almost everything was in the store. So the questions that come to my mind are, is this genuinely like going to help stop people from doing stupid things and compromising their phones, or allowing malware to proliferate? Or I mean, I would hope that there's at least some aspect of that thinking to Google. Again, allowing sideloading of signed packages, I mean, seems fairly not generous, but like, it's their platform, right? They could just say you can't. They could be like Apple, right? And say, if you want to do it, you got to jailbreak, and if you know how hard jailbreaking is, so you're allowed to install sideload stuff on Android. Always have been. Now they're basically just saying, is it going to be prohibitively difficult to get a signing key or identification? Is it that the developers are so worried about like identifying themselves? I'm not trying to just be devil's advocate here. I mean, obviously open is better, and I don't want it to be in a situation like, if they had said you can't sideload something, yeah, I'd be pretty upset about that, because I do use F-Droid and probably a dozen open source packages. But I don't know, I just feel like this is
in the article, it does say that they are going to be getting rid of sideloading. So
no,
it said
that's not what I took away from it.
They said installing.
What? I thought you said they were not.
No, that Google.
Yeah,
said,
they very clearly said
Google,
they weren't.
So I'll read the part again. So Google rushed to assure developers that sideloading is not going away, and this was pointed out. I'm doing a little ellipses here because there's a lot of fluffy language. That software, the unintermittent installation of software of your choosing on a device that you own is indeed going away if they follow through on their threat.
That sounds like a contradiction almost, doesn't it?
No, exactly. That's double speak.
Yeah, no, I think that's
the next minute. Then they're saying you're not going to be allowed to put the.
I think what they're saying is you can't just install anything. Yeah. So you can still sideload something that's signed from a developer, from GitHub, from somewhere. right? And the reason F-Droid is having such a tizzy over it is because they sign everything,
Right. So
right?
on their post for October 28th, 2025, it says Google's message that sideloading is not going away is clear, concise, and false. So shortly after our post was published, Google aired an episode of their Android Developers Roundtable series that they state unequivocally that sideloading isn't going anywhere, and they follow up with a blog post. So it doesn't mean so the statement is, according to to F-Droid, is untrue. The developer verification decree effectively ends the ability for individuals to choose what software they can run on the devices they own. So if it's not signed by
not
Google,
because they can't sideload.
you can't. So if it's not signed, you cannot sideload it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I agree with that. I know that. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't just.
So like if I create an app, my own app, and I don't have a Google account, I cannot sideload it on there.
So what if it literally takes you 2 minutes to sign it?
You have to pay though. You also have to pay.
Yeah, you have to pay developer fee.
Because I'm just testing out. I just want to compile some random stuff
right.
and test it out on there.
And that's where I think them pushing back to have you have to do, tap your head and rub your belly and like do 20 jumping jacks to unlock the ability to do that is fine. I think that's probably makes more sense, or be able to connect it to your computer and use like APK or whatever to sideload it that way instead of like just downloading. I don't know. I don't disagree that if they do if they make the process of developing software more difficult, then that then that I agree with. But then I think you can also say that you have an alternative of not using Android. You can use something that'll run on an Android phone that's an open version. Again, I'm just wondering, like, what are the real reasons behind this? Because it's not just. I don't think it's just someone at Google. Go ahead.
And you do have to know it is in developer mode. You have to stick it in developer mode, so you'd have to get somebody to do that each time. There are already a lot of hurdles, and you can't just do it to others. You would have to set it up for just your device.
But do you think that's really a good thing that people are able to just random, like the 99% of people who use an Android phone who have no business installing a random APK, no matter if it's signed or not?
Not good for them, but yeah, you would want it in development mode, so it'd be. And I just want to compile stuff, throw it on there. I don't want to go through that whole.
So what it boils down to is if I just wanted to just toy around with something, build it, I will not be able to put it on my Android phone once this goes into effect.
Right, that's what it sounds like.
Right, yeah. So I lose that ability.
Yeah, and that's what I'm doing. I
don't know.
Toy around.
I'm not sure. I'm not 100% convinced that that's going to be the case. I think that if there's going to be that much friction, I do think that there's probably going to be either pretty significantly straightforward ways to get around it, or they'll allow developers to do things like that. Because if they make it that difficult for a developer to develop software for their platform, it seems like a pretty stupid idea. So, Google's done some pretty stupid things over the years, but I can't imagine they would be that dumb, but maybe they are. I don't know. Yeah, that's what drives me crazy about articles like this, is that there's a lot of that was the longest article to basically say they're not going to allow you to install unsigned APKs, basically. Right? It was just like on and on and on and on and on. Like, you're not giving us any kind of like hard facts. Like, why are we doing this? Why do we not want to do this? I don't know. Just
to clarify, this is not a news article. This is straight from F-Droid.
Yeah, it's a
so
blog
maybe that's why.
But yeah, what I was working on, it's a messed up library, and so nobody can make anything for this into an app. I just wanted to see if I can fix their library. If I can fix their library, I'll go forward. But I just want to toy around with it first to see if I can get to that level. I don't want to go through all that other stuff.
The other thing, if you don't mind,
well, maybe this will be a reason for Linux to someone to create a Linux-based phone finally.
Well, the other thing I'd like to segue a little bit, which is kind of the same idea, a different circumstance. I talked about it earlier today. There was an announcement that came out of California that they want operating systems, including Linux, to basically prove age. And they're saying it's the most ridiculous law. It's how are you going to enforce it, this and that. And the one thing I forgot to talk about on there today is the one way of doing that, and what jogged my memory about is when I talked about Microsoft controlling secure boot and that kind of thing. They're talking about if it gets put on at the BIOS level, that you would have to somehow prove your age, and then whether they take it as a grain of salt or however that works out to be, before you'd even be able to get into your operating system. And if you're talking about this on computer systems, you're going to see that on everything, even these phones, correct? Because you got firmware and all these other things they have to run before the actual, as we see the pretty system that shows up. We all know that's just a bunch of code behind it that you're looking at, no different than a website too. So it makes you wonder. What's up, Nate? He's
Are you muted, Nate?
True to form.
Sorry, I got excited. I didn't check before I got excited. So, all right. So actually, Eric, I think Eric probably does have a point, and I'm gonna start. I hate it when I say Eric is right. I'm wrong all the time. But so here's.
Careful, slippery slope.
No, it's not. Well, yes, maybe it is. Maybe I've already fallen down the slope. So here's the thing. For an official Google phone, the app does have to be signed whether you sideload or not. But you could de-Google your phone and remove yourself entirely from the ecosystem. Then you can do whatever you want. So, I guess
I would like to mention one thing, and this goes along with all this. Google has stopped showing the, I don't know how to say this, but they used to expose the Google Pixels core for developing Android openly.
Yep.
And that's being closed off. So going forward, doing Android by the other ROM is going to be much tougher because they won't even have the Pixel as a backup, as in the original blueprint in order to work with the other phones that don't have any of this underlying system exposed.
So I guess it'll be interesting to see what happens from all this. If there could be an Android fork at some point in time, and then I think if enough companies got together, so it's not all doom and gloom, but it means that there would have to be, would Motorola or some other manufacturer offer an unlocked de-Googleable phone when that could be their, it could make for another phone besides Fairphone to have a niche market in that area. I don't know.
What's the Chinese manufacturers at Huawei? Which the one that had to create their own? So they don't use Android. They created their own, didn't they?
I think they use AOSP as the base of it. I don't actually know. I'm spitballing here.
Yeah. Well, no, it's a good point because I'm wondering, and again, I think unfortunately the vast majority of people aren't going to care or ever notice anything about this. So it's not going to be anything that really affects Google, I think, or Android as a platform. And I think this is also the reason that having a duopoly is such a terrible idea.
Yep.
And I was just listening to something this week about why is it that tech companies, that everything has to come down to either maybe, a monopoly or a duopoly. They just can't seem to be a vibrant marketplace of competitors, and I honestly don't remember.
It's called unfettered capitalism, my friend.
Yes, that is absolutely true.
The general,
but what about tech specifically?
I think that's not just tech. There's plenty other industries where this happens. The food is a big one. So processed food is a huge one. when you look at how many
And they mentioned
brands
that
someone like
food was another big
Nestle-
one. Yep.
Yeah, the natural evolution of a entirely purely capitalistic market is always going to be towards efficiency and therefore monopolistic tendencies. When it's unregulated.
Well, I think the natural for anything is I think in any system is for power to consolidate. If you look at any other systems, that's just typically what happens. I think the issue though is when you have
No disagreement.
You think so?
No disagreement.
I think there are sensible ways to regulate things such that doesn't happen. I think looking at that from that perspective is I think limited.
I think you could call that a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Well, I'm just thinking like even like you have you have fast food chains, although at the higher end supply level, you're right, it comes down to just a couple of suppliers. And I think usually it also comes down to like a lot of times it's when you have one that's favored by the government or not. That's also when it becomes a problem too, at least when it prevents competition from being able to exist. That's typically when you have these large
Right, which is
conglomerates.
why I said it's a sensible regulations.
Right. Right, but if everyone's looking at graph go up, that's not good. So
I guess it's a different perspective. I think it's a different perspective that I have because we generally have, I feel, pretty sensible regulations that kind of prevent the companies from merging, creating themselves to be too big, etc., etc.
Yeah, I think that when a company gets so large, they shouldn't be able to. Well, that can get to that's not a Linux discussion, but I think there's a lot of things where there should be some interventions, someplace to.
Yep.
There should be some referees on the field to make sure nobody's cheating, and I think that's part of the problem.
Antitrust.
Yep.
Antitrust.
Yeah.
Yep. Browser wars.
So there's the right amount of referees in the game is what's needed. Not too many, not too few, and they got to make the right calls. So yeah.
The other thing that I think you have to remember is a lot of the information that's out there is being spoon-fed.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
the interesting thing about this, I was doing some additional reading while you were talking about this, and I've developed some mobile apps before, and if you want actually, unless you're just side loading, if you wanted to put in the store, you have to register to be a Google developer anyway, number one. Number two, I think the benefit of it is that it's going to cut down on malware tremendously. Get a lot of that out of the store and get it out of the the ability to just side load. And also, if you're a developer, you have tools like a virtual environment to run your apps in during testing and so forth.
Yeah,
So
I bet you'd want it on the actual one because those can.
Well, yeah, I mean, it depends.
Totally
It depends on the situation, I mean, what the app is. But I'm not taking up for Google. I'm just saying, this is F-Droid. That they have an agenda posting this, and I'm not saying their agenda's bad, but we just have to keep that in mind that this is one side of the story, Everybody, and I'm no fan of Google, but there's more to this than just what they're saying. That's all I'm saying.
And that's the same takeaway I have, is it just feels lopsided.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
I would like it to be a little more like, okay, we get it. Maybe there's a reason they're doing this. It just feels very I don't know. Just feels a lot like just throwing it one direction. So that's all.
They're bringing it more in line with what Apple does.
Spoon-fed because it's throwing something out there and seeing, at the wall and seeing what sticks or see how people respond. And that kind of gives them, a way to ebb and flow into getting whatever their primary goal is out there.
Well, and I understand F-Droid's stance on this because it does basically destroy their ability to
Absolutely.
distribute software.
Absolutely, yeah.
But you can also argue that the way they do it is completely unsanctioned, and the way they do it is also potentially dangerous because it's not really. I mean, we're counting on them to vet the developers that are publishing these packages, and not that I have any reason to distrust them because I feel like they've done a great job of it, but it probably is a very small team of people, and they're doing their best as packagers or maintainers of the project to make sure the repositories have the updated packages and all of that stuff. But that's a lot of work, and it is possible for something to not be checked properly. And if it means that F-Droid has to find a better, different way to do what it does, then maybe that's not the worst thing in the world. I mean, I don't love that it's going to potentially mean that I can't get the software that I use the way I do now, because there's stuff I use literally every single day. And it'll be a pain to have to do that stuff manually, but or it won't be able to use it at all because the developers don't want to go through the developer, route. And but what I've found, and this is kind of interesting, I don't know if you guys have used F-Droid, a lot of the packages, especially the more popular ones, are already on the Play Store. So using F-Droid is kind of like, and they'll show up in F-Droid and say, you probably don't want to update it through F-Droid because you installed it through the Play Store. I'm like, well, why in the hell are you showing it to me for? You're just confusing me. So yeah, it's not a consistent experience all the time.
I would like to point out an example that happened. There was a set of applications for like images. What was the other thing? There's like 3 or 4 apps that were developed by one developer, and he sold the I guess the source code to some company, and then they added our ads to it, and they started collecting data and everything. And then that all came to the Play Store, but it didn't come to the F-Droid because F-Droid has to first on their own guidelines. They inspect all changes and then they only approve it. I mean, they review it, and once they approve it, then they can upload it because they review any changes that happen to the software. So those changes were not brought over.
Anti-features, though. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's fine. Yeah. So basically, they reviewed it and they stopped those changes from coming to the F-Droid version.
May very well come down to who you trust more. I mean, really.
I think the problem that bugs me the most. So I think the problem that bugs me the most about this is like, if I create an application, I see that. I've seen that before too. Also, like then we'll just uninstall the one on the Google Play Store and I'll put on the F-Droid one. But if I were to write an application, I have to go through the process of registering with Google in order to share it with somebody. And I think having that centralized control kind of bugs me like a lot, because again, and maybe because I'm old, and I wrote applications and games and things in my youth, shared them with other people, and now with these modern operating systems, that's basically going away. And so I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm just not really sure what the long term. I mean, it's really pulling the fun out of computers. But again, I understand for safety and security.
Exactly. That's it. It's pulling the tinkering, the fun. Yeah.
Yes, the tinkering.
So think about the fun of Android for me at first was because Android was a very bare bones platform, if you remember. The playing with ROMs was amazing, and I swear, I spent 5 years maybe continuously doing nothing but ROMing, doing ROMs on my phone, to the point where I'd travel and do something stupid and mess up my phone, and then have to, I was dumb about it, but I just enjoyed doing it so much, and I had tried every single one that came out, and and that was a lot of fun for what it was in the time, right? You were getting new features or things that weren't in the other ROMs or whatever. But then slowly the bootloaders got locked down to the point where it became a serious hassle to unlock, pretty much every single phone. And then that was no fun anymore. And, and also I would say the other argument would be that Android by that point had become a very mature platform, and the things that the ROMs were doing were minimal at best, and the risk of installing them. And also, there you go. There's another instance where tech, to think about it now, where there used to be hundreds of ROMs, and now there's 4, and they're very mature, very well respected, very widely used, and so there you go. There's a more tech, narrowing to a fine point, I suppose. But,
Nate, to your point to what you were talking about how it feels like it's taken away some of your personal control by using a single source kind of repository. I agree with you, but you got to remember that the number of units running this platform make Windows look like nothing.
Like a Linux distro.
Exactly. So you have a vector there to send out malware and viruses that's like no other platform. So that, to me, that in itself is an issue, and I'm sure that's why they're heading in this direction. Is because of all the issues that have been coming through the Play Store and people sideloading viruses and malware on their phones. So, I'm not disputing what you say because I agree with you, but I think that's their reasoning behind it, is because of the just massive number of units that are out there. It's such a good vector for someone writing viruses.
Sure, but I think there are better ways to go about it than just forcing everything to be signed. There are ways to. This is like we're just going to suck the entire bit of fun out of the operating system. Android is no longer. You no longer own your phone. You will own nothing to be happy. Sort of a behavior about it, and I think that's not the right way to go about it. I think it's very despotic.
Let me ask you something. What do you think most iPhone users think about their phones? Did they think it's fun, or did they just use it as a tool?
So most of them say it's got an Apple logo on it and it's shiny. That is what I really think people say.
It's a phone.
I think most Apple users just accept it for what it is. They don't even question, like,
right.
You mean a difference, or the ability to do something that you could do that you can't do here? It doesn't even occur. Like, they just take what's given to them.
I guess that's my point. We're a very small group of people, compared to the rest of that group. And so
I've got iPhones. My whole family's got them. And the first thing I do is I go in there and I shut everything off that I don't want running, and all that stuff. I've got mine pretty well locked down as far as it'll let me do it. But
the points I will give Apple, now I won't give them many points because I think that a lot of the business practices are awful, and they're almost as bad as Microsoft, maybe worse. Is they historically have been very good about protecting their encryption. I think they've caved on that, and I think that's bad. But they have historically been very good on it. I don't know that. I don't think Android's any. I think Samsung's terrible. But this, I don't know. I think this is just a step too far. And
but Apple's already doing it. They do it with their developers. Yeah, actually, they're worse than this.
It's less fun. It is less fun on iOS to mess around with it, big time. To lose that, and just
right. So they're making it a business.
I'm not quite sure I'm understanding.
Go ahead.
I'm not quite sure I'm understanding still, because, this is a decision that Google's made for Android, and Android is still their product. Even OSP is ostensibly their product because they develop most of it, right?
Sure.
But you say it's taking away choice, but you can still use an alternative OS, could you not? Like, just like if your Linux distro didn't do what made some choices that you didn't want, you could
The
change over to a different one.
kernel is under a license. You have the kernel under GNU and then the user space under BSD. So you are limited by that.
So the analogy that I would make would be that, like, so you go into your Linux distro and you install an application from the repository. Now, the whole point of having a repository is that that's maintained by a certain group of people who have a certain level of trust. Like, they have earned that trust to maintain and package those packages. Is that not a similar sort of thing? Like, would you feel as comfortable going to a random GitHub repo and downloading the binary from that and installing it on your system? There's a level of, I guess, wariness that you would have doing that.
Under Linux, we have lots of distributions. That's for sure.
So
we're not a vector. We're not a virus vector.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the big thing.
No, but if the issue is about choice, you've still got choice. You can use graphene.
So yeah, you can use graphene. You can, well, only if you have a Pixel phone of certain Pixel phones. You can de-Google your phone, yes. But the point of it is, yes, it is their operating system. They can do whatever they want, but they've been using a lot of the open source community to help build Android from the very beginning, and they're basically turning their backs on the community that built them. Is the way
the kernel will.
I disagree. I think they do most of their own development. I mean, because there was also that. Remember how there was that furor about them changing their release policy for AOSP from like just putting out the source code as development happens to keeping it in-house and then releasing it on an interim basis. Does that not show that they do a bunch of their own development?
Yeah, and there was a pretty huge outcry when they started changing how they're releasing it.
Because, I mean, the outcry, from what I saw, was basically from developers of other phone distributions that basically just didn't have any access to that source code anymore, right?
It's part of it, yeah.
They're not necessarily. I'm not quite sure how much they're pushing back upstream. I don't know that for certain, but I can almost categorically say that Google does most of their own development on Android.
Their kernel development does get pushed up, but their kernel is also GNU, so it has to be pushed up. So.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess we'll see what happens. I mean, it's not something I'm happy about, but I understand the business decision for it. I just think the business decision sucks. I mean, is what I really think it does. That's really what it boils down to.
I want to answer the question everybody asks: why are you doing this? Because they can.
Right.
That's why they're doing this.
Well, they have
because they can. Because Apple
have a product.
Apple can lock down their stuff. Why can't they lock down theirs too? And then in the process collect more money through these applications.
Yeah, I mean, they have so that question, they have a product that they own, and they need to protect that, because whenever there is a news story of a malware application on the Play Store, that's kind of bad news, right? So they have to protect that level of trust that they have, I would think.
And I think if you're gonna put something on the Play Store, then absolutely all that developer stuff, you are absolutely correct, should go through that process. But I think the side loading for something that you do, if I want to make something and share it with Eris, which you probably wouldn't install because you wouldn't trust me, then it's up to Eris to say, no, I'm going to reject you, Cubicle Nate, your application because I don't trust you. And I think that you can make some hoops, make it a tortured path, but to outright block it, I think is wrong. That's my.
They're not thinking it over. They're just taking an axe.
Yeah.
Okay, but then what makes that any different than what Microsoft's doing, saying you have to sign into an account to already use the operating system, otherwise, and no workarounds. You know what I mean? It's the same principle.
There's still a workaround right now.
There's workarounds, I know, but they keep trying to shut the doors on them. The point is they don't want people doing that. It's the principle is the same point, though, is they're doing something that most people don't want, and it's no different than what you're saying about Google here too.
Right.
And the problem is, again, when you're using their product or playing in their sandbox or whatever, you're at the mercy of that. So until somebody comes up and decides to manufacture a framework phone that you could, with your own setup and your own stuff and your own firmware and everything else, you're stuck with what you get, I guess. And whether you agree or not, and that's the hard part, is feeling like your hands are always tied.
There was an article we didn't get to last time on Newsflight, and it talked about how if you have a online account for your Microsoft Windows, that means that they can unlock your BitLocker through it.
Wow.
Yeah, I understand they do a lot of this for convenience and for the masses, and I'm fine with that. But my issue is the complete lockout, the complete removal of any, for those that want to navigate and do a little bit more, to completely lock those people out, I think is a mistake. And that,
Right,
and
so
I,
then,
that
then your
includes
choice is
that,
to use a different OS, right?
Agree. Yeah.
yeah.
Or
That's
just
why I
go
use
sign
Linux.
up for a developer account. You do
And
that.
And in
don't-
Microsoft's case, it's a lock in. They want to lock everybody in.
Right.
Right. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's gonna be real interesting when you see all of this development stuff, that it doesn't matter if it's computers or phones or your vehicles. There's just so much stuff coming down the pike that it's like your head
Right to
hurts thinking
repair.
about it.
I love
Yeah.
that right to repair law.
I do too. But a lot of times the things that do pass are kind of like, they don't really move the needle. They kind of give lip service, back to that unfettered.
But they're usually changing committee to a much weaker version that comes out.
Right. Or right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Business interests.
Yep. Well, but people also have to eat. But the problem is, it should not always be graph go up. Sometimes graph doesn't.
Well, people
always
only
go up.
need so much to eat. They don't need 10 billion
That's
times
true.
the amount to eat.
Yeah. Yeah, you could go the opposite direction and have to do bread lines, I suppose. So I don't know. I guess we'll see how it all shakes out. I mean, we go through this quite a bit. The whole industries go through these pain points. So anyway, well, we should let's probably go and move on to the housekeeping. We need something happy to talk about. Hey, here's one. Meta could end up owning 10% of AMD. No, that's not a good one. All right, I guess we're...
Flip that ass. Flip that ass. Flip that ass. Flip that ass.
Sorry, I hit the wrong button. Sorry.
This isn't Steve's stream.
That's good. That was good, even though it was
Sorry.
All right, housekeeping, ICS. So it'll make this jolly good time. So next week is an application appetizer. Does anybody have any applications that are not locked down by Google you'd like to maybe look at? Anything out there that's of any interest? So here's
Well, if you
some
wanna get the gaming
So
front. Does anybody use Go Overlay? I mean, it's been around for a while, but I don't know how many people really know about it. If you're
What's up?
gamers,
Which one?
Go Overlay, Mango HUD, and Go Overlay for monitoring your FPS and all that stuff. I mean, that's within the Linux, ecosystem.
I don't know that one. How do you actually, can you put a link to that in the chat?
Go over. It's just GOVERLAY. It's all one word. Go Overlay, and then Mango HUD. Mango HUD's part of it. It's like two parts to it. But Go Overlay is what it allows you to. If you ever see when you're watching a video when they have the system information up in the corner, or FPS and 1% lows and all that, that's what that does. That's all. But what's nice about it is if I turn it on right now on here, I could see what my system's doing basically in the same deal, just doing this, so. But again, that's gamer oriented. So if somebody is interested in that, I don't know how many people know it. There's a lot of apps out there that you couldn't use. Like I use Cooler Control too right now, which is a nice app for controlling my fans on here instead of always going into the BIOS and have to do the fan curves in there. I could actually do it with that or lacked, so there's a few apps that are geared toward gaming like that before you couldn't do. Now you could do it and it works super well.
I was going to be trying some of the Ardor that just got released 9.2 like 6 days ago. It's an audio application on Linux.
I don't know how many people are going to use that. So I
Probably
guess, yeah, I tried Ardour once. And I'm like, I'm just going to stick with Audacity because I'm just a simpleton.
Yeah, Audacity is what I'm using, but I'd like to try that.
So there's some things like Gear Lever. I think Sean, did we ever do that one? Like I can't remember if we actually did that. It was suggested by Sean.
Gear Lever Warehouse is a good one for Flatpak. Never used Warehouse.
Bazzite, which is really good for managing Flatpaks. Is that the one, like the same principle as Warehouse, correct, Eric?
Yeah, there's something about Bazzite that I didn't like. It was the way it kind of ran in the background. There was something it was doing that I genuinely disliked, and I ran it for like a day, and I was like, nope, we're done with this. And it was something about the way it was like running in the background, or I didn't love it.
Does it update in the background or something?
To check for updates, and every once in a while, they fixed it.
It was and maybe they fixed it. It was a real heavy process that kept running and like just sucking up system resources. And I was like, what is it doing? So it was, I didn't imagine it was the way it was supposed to be, but I didn't know if they had fixed it or not.
You'll see like a little spinny circle as checking for updates. And that's probably what you're talking about. And I know for a while there, it's like even the apps weren't loading, and now it seems like I haven't had any problems. So I think they've corrected that. If you decide to look at it.
And I still have it, so I'm just going to fire it up and see what happens. Yeah, so refreshing store content. Yeah, that was pretty quick.
I'm still waiting for this Emacs tutorial from Adam. I guess he's been busy with AI.
Another one I absolutely love is Local Send, if you guys aren't using that.
Yep, that's a good one. We did that Local Send not too long ago. Maybe it's been a while. I don't know. I can't remember when we did it.
What if we did one on all the local transfer ones like KDE Connect and Local Send?
What's funny is I have more problems with KDE Connect than I do Local Send, and I'm on a KDE-based system, so go figure that one out.
Yeah, KDE Connect is really cool.
Yeah,
it is cool. It is. It's just it seems a little more clunkier to me to use than Local Send does for some reason. I'm not sure why. But then again, in fact,
Joe, you're right.
I haven't spent time on it. Pardon me?
Joe, you're right about Bazzite. It's they fixed it, and it's actually pretty slick now. So it's a nice front end for FlatHub, basically. So that's pretty cool. I mean, it's I guess nicer than having to deal with the links from the website or copy pasting or whatever. So
it's one click and you go.
So it's way better than it was.
It tells you what's got to be, and it actually will give you a list of what's got to be updated and all that. It's really nice. It's slick.
How does that compare to like what Discover does?
It's like more like an app store in itself, where it's like I know Discover's an app store, but it's geared toward just Flatpaks, and it's just what it's nice is it shows the updates differently. It gives you the list. It's kind of it's similar but yet different, because you're talking about specifically Flatpaks. You're not talking about when you go into Discover, you can select whether you want, like I'm on Fedora, it might be a Fedora Flatpak, or it might be a Fedora, package manager, or it might be FlatHub in itself if you've got all those loaded in, where it'll show you all of those. So this is just strictly Flatpaks. It's like going to FlatHub and just being able to install it with like Eric was just saying, where you don't have to click the copy and drop it into the command line and all. It's a lot less steps. It's a click and go, just similar to Discover, but I think it works even better when it comes to
it's interesting. So I almost always, for the inbuilt package manager, apt or RPM or whatever, I almost always just use the command line. Almost never use a GUI for that. But whenever I go to install a Flatpak, I really don't like FlatHub's or Flatpak's search like their command line is not the greatest in my opinion, and I almost always go to the website, which is just a disconnected experience because it's like you're in a browser and you can click the link and it'll kind of open your, GUI package manager, but then it's usually doesn't handle Flatpaks very nicely. I'm glad you mentioned this, Joe, because this is way better than it was. Like I will actually genuinely use this now.
On KDE, you're not on KDE, are you, Eric?
No.
Okay,
No.
because I noticed a lot of times too. I'll see updates through Discover that are there. I'll click them, I'll update it, and then I'll hit the command line. I'll still run an update command, and boom, update with the /y to get it basically going, and I'm still getting a bunch of packages. Or I'll vice versa. I'll run a manual command line update, and yet I'll still see some show up with Discover. It's kind of weird. It's like,
yeah,
it's almost like it's fragmented. I don't know why.
Yeah, this is pretty slick. I like this.
All right, so we're down to two different categories: either convergence applications, so those that so you can do file transfers or things of that nature, communication between devices, or Flatpak storefronts.
I like the B stuff.
Which stuff?
Seems reasonable.
Which ones? Guys?
Oh, you're saying we have to pick one?
Yes.
Flip a coin.
Well, that's no fair. Well, you know which one I'm going to pick.
Well, which
As
one?
I
are you
win,
gonna pick?
tails you lose. Which one?
Oh, I'm going to be using Bazaar all week now. Yeah,
Okay.
Because now that I know it's there, yeah.
Let's go ahead and talk then to Flatpak storefronts, or we can also throw in
Utilities.
So we'll say application, because I want to include the app image piece of it too. So the application management store things. So to include anything.
Are you
app image as
talking
well.
about everything like Flatpak, app images,
Snaps?
Yeah.
all of them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So just different.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So
Gotcha.
how would you call that, Eris? What would you
Application managers besides your
App
your
manager,
Software
your internal package manager, I guess. I don't know.
All right.
I have no idea.
This way we can
Static
I can do like a
manager.
yeah.
Well, basically, you're talking about all containerized ones when you're
container.
talking about an actual package manager.
Yeah, but
These
app
are all
images aren't
containerized, the three I mentioned.
containerized necessarily. They're
They're not containerized. They're not sandboxed.
Sandbox. I'm sorry, misspoke.
yeah.
No, but they're not. The app images are not technically always
No,
sandboxed.
no, they're more of a challenge too. So
Yeah, you can, and also you can the conversation can always be hijacked too to something else, as Sean has pointed out.
Static package.
Oh, of course.
We could do universal.
There we go.
Universal package managers.
there you go.
And then somebody's gonna talk about NixOS, hopefully.
Okay, got it. Universal application storefronts and managers. There we go.
Perfect.
You guys are brilliant. You know that? You're like the best.
I'm glad you thought of it.
I say that to all the panels. So, all right. Also, make sure you check out linuxsaloon.com. I have a calendar there coming up events, and so I will update next week to reflect that. We'll be looking at universal application storefronts and managers for the application Appetizer, and then after that we'll have an open mic night. So I think what I'd like to do, and I'll talk to Eris about this and anybody else who cares, but probably do like maybe some straw polls ahead of the time, like maybe throw out there somewhere like what applications people might be interested in or whatnot. I don't know, some ideas. So because we can keep one just kind of running for a while.
It switched over accidentally.
Not that it matters, because a lot of times people who vote on it don't show up anyway. So there's also that. Joe, better see you next week.
I'll certainly try, as long as the grandkids aren't here. Paul, we're quiet now, so yeah, I'll be.
If they come on, you can just blur their faces out so they have some sort of digital.
Oh, I don't mind that. I mean, it gets noisy sometimes. That's all.
Hey Joe, just don't be like that video where the guy's on the news and this little kid comes in behind him. You know what I'm talking about? And
The one crawling on the
Danny
floor or whatever.
rushes in to pull them all back out.
Yeah.
Well, you could be that way too. So if you have any distribution suggestions, application suggestions, poll ideas, anything you got, send them to suggestions@linuxsaloon.com, or you can put them in the Telegram or Discord chats. Just make sure you tag Eris and or me or both. Would be better. And maybe tag Eric too, just for kicks. Just for kicks. Anyway. All right. Also, I will do there'll be like a kind of wrap up show notes that you can get all the links and all the goodies when this is done. And or if you're listening to this after the fact, it'll be down in the description. Just click on that. I guess it's time for last call. So many things we didn't get to. Certainly my fault. Okay.
Glad we have a lot of stuff to get to.
Yeah, there's lots of things on there. It's all right, though. That's the way it goes. Prepare a lot of things and, get to whatever. There's definitely room for more open mic or more news discussions. Well, Eric, you got anything exciting going on here in the area of tech? Involved in any projects or anything?
No. So I tried fixing that computer. I mentioned the Dell Optiplex, and I thought maybe it had been a power supply. I replaced it, memory. I went through all the normal, troubleshooting things, and there just must be something in the board. It comes on for 10 seconds and then doesn't even post. Like it just drops back down. So, I kind of now the next thing I'm going to do is just look at the drives and see if there's anything interesting on them.
May try disabling BIOS stuff too.
I can't even get into it.
Oh, God.
Have you checked?
It won't even post.
Yeah,
it won't even post.
Don't forget to try kicking it also. That's always an option.
Oh, I gave it some good karate chops. Judo chop. And it didn't seem to
give the old Fonzarelli.
Yeah, I pulled the battery. I did like all of the top 10 greatest hits.
I'm talking about if it's not powered enough, you could have problems like that too, where you can't even get into the BIOS because it's got to be I don't remember what it is, 3.2 or whatever volts, and if it's anything below that, that could make it struggle. So especially if you go below 3.
I mean,
batteries are cheap if you want to try that.
We're talking a curbside, 15-year-old Dell. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. And it's just for giggles, really. I mean, I just was, and I did see the Dell splash screen one time, and that was it. And it does a loop where it comes up, fans spin up. And it's not a full 10 seconds. It's actually more like a 5 seconds. So it comes up, spins, drives don't activate, nothing. It doesn't even get to anywhere close to a boot sequence. It just the board powers up and then it just shuts right back down.
May have some jumpers.
And I checked the power switch. I checked everything you can imagine, all of the dumb, obvious things. And yeah.
Jumpers, you can disable the LAN or the audio with jumpers as well.
Yeah, I'm not going down that road. I don't care enough. It was something fun. My wife literally picked it up off the side of the road and she's like, "Hey, I found a computer." I'm like, "Okay." So I spent an hour and that's about all I care to. So.
Well.
It's probably nothing I would have ever used, to be honest with you.
Does it have any RAM in it that you can sell? You might be able to make some money.
It has 8 gigs of 2 gig sticks, so 4 2 gig, and I think they're DDR2, 3 maybe.
2.
Yeah, I mean they're ancient, so.
I got you.
Yeah, I think it's a Core 2 Duo, maybe somewhere around there.
Okay.
So. 2011 was when it was, so 15 years.
Yeah, that probably would be DDR2 then.
Yeah.
Well, but it was fun though, right?
Oh yeah.
For an hour.
Yeah. No, it was something worth, and it let me, exercise my troubleshooting chops. And I actually did think I put the the good power supply in, and that's when I saw the Dell logo, and I'm like, "Ooh, cool!" I got it, and yeah, it got me. I think it just got enough of the signal to the screen to kick it on, and that was it. So
there may be some other corrosion somewhere that you may not be able to see that has caused.
it could be a capacitor. I mean, it could be anything. Yeah, I mean, I could go down to like jumpers and all kinds of silly stuff, but it's not worth it. So
believe it or not, the power switch is probably worth some money because there's a lot of people that are doing the retrofits, and they put a board in that you don't have it.
It's a cool case. Yeah. It's got that like quick release side case, side panel, where it has you just lift the hinge and the whole thing pops off in one. Like really, those old Dell cases, everything's like smoothed over, no rough edges. It's a very nice little case. I'd actually consider reusing the case, but putting new guts in it. So.
Yeah, Dell does a good job on their cases. I don't know if they're all like ATX compliant though, but I mean.
Yeah, some of them. I had a couple weird ones. I had a weird one that opened like a clamshell, and it had like a ducted power supply. It was a very weird machine, but it looked like a normal tower. But then as soon as you opened it, the guts were all very strange. So. But normally they did just kind of, and especially Optiplex stuff. That's usually pretty like office based stuff. So I may end up keeping the case honestly because it's a cool little case. So not a complete waste.
And then what you can do is you can like because your wife is an artist, right? Yeah, your wife's an artist, so she can probably come up with some cool design stuff you do to it to make it like your tricked out machine.
Could be. My super retro sleeper.
Wrap it in something. I mean, I think that'd be cool, but there's a lot of things I think that are cool that.
Yeah.
It's probably just me that thinks it's cool.
Have you ever played with vinyl? You get some have different colored vinyl tape, and you can come up with some pretty cool designs if you have enough patience to play with it.
Yes,
yeah.
I have. And in fact, I wrapped the maintenance supervisor's new computer. It was a framework. I wrapped it in pink vinyl.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
As a prank or by request?
Not his request. But I went so far as to do his dock station and his power supply, and then I got him a Hello Kitty mouse mat, and then a kind of a pastel white, pink, whatever. I mean, this is the maintenance supervisor, so he's like, his fingers are always, greasy or whatever. So his keyboard's doesn't look so clean and white anymore. But he's like, nah, I'm gonna roll with it, and so he's just been rolling with it for over a year now. Yeah, but yes, I've played with vinyl. Yeah, I got one of those it's like how you can cut like straight edge cuts of paper or whatever. You can do vinyl, all kinds of things. So I took the time to make sure that everything was as perfect as I could make it.
I would expect nothing less from you, Nate.
And I have pictures I'll share with you on like in the Telegram.
Okay.
Show your other little invention that you showed us today.
Oh, we can do that afterwards. Nobody cares about my other nonsense.
Okay. I know.
And Icarus Factor, do you have anything you want to share with the class before we take off?
No, I've already shared what I had to and listened to. It's been good so far.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad you're here. I hope you come back.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Jinda. Mr. Rowdy
Nate.
himself.
Yes, I was very rowdy today. I apologize drastically to the class.
Yeah. Well, we're seeing a pattern here. I don't know if what we can do about that. But anyway, thanks for being here.
We wake you up from your nap.
We tried.
Joe, good to have you.
Yeah, thank you again. Twice in one day. That's all right.
You got to make up for lost time.
Yeah, there you go. No, it was fun. Thanks for having me again. It's and seeing you guys again. It's fun.
I really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thank you.
And then Adam really kicked off the whole conversation with quite the chin stroker, as it were. Some ideas, some thoughts.
Yeah, hopefully they were well received.
I don't care about anybody else, but I enjoyed it, so that's what matters, right?
That's what's important.
Adam, you are always well received. What are you talking about?
Yeah, a lot of people might disagree with you, sir.
We don't care. And Arch Penguin, I guess you just slipped in here. It's good to see you earlier today too. I don't know if anything you wanted to share or sprechen about. It's okay if not. But thanks for being here. Eris, appreciate everything you do.
Sorry, I missed it actually.
Oh, it's all right. It's all right. There's always next week.
Arch Jr. made some brisket, so I got sidetracked.
Yeah. See that's totally understandable. I get it. I mean, just the smell of brisket, especially if it's good brisket. I mean,
Yeah, slow smoked in a giant smoker for like 8 or 9 hours. So good.
I like it when it's got a nice bark on the outside too.
It was.
I can't ever seem to do it right. Yeah.
Super tender and juicy. So good.
Yeah. IRL is very important. I can't fault you there at all. But thank you for being here. Eris, much appreciate everything you do.
Thank you.
And Mike?
Yes, sir.
Do you have anything you want to plug? Anything, any changes to Markalite or anything like that? Markalite or Classic BBS? Besides all?
Not this week. I was traveling and working, so I was, maybe not this coming week, but maybe the next week, if you want to do a software demo on Markalite and resize all, you can do that. Yeah,
absolutely. When you're ready, let's put it on the calendar.
Okay. I didn't touch with you about it.
But you tell me when.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And Vince, always good to have you. Even if you do have some, even if your soundboard is a little bit questionable.
Yeah, you still talking to me? I'm so glad you're still talking to me. Are you still my friend after that little snafu?
Absolutely.
Listen.
Great.
Okay.
Listen.
You really need to know that it could have been a lot worse.
That's what I was just going to say. It could have been so much worse.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, if you had slipped and did like one of your Steve's very own soundboards, I would, of course,
I'll leave that after the show.
Like this.
If anybody likes to hear the full plethora of soundboards, wait till after the show.
Yes.
The after party.
Yeah.
So
thanks, Nate.
Yep. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Love your insights. It's good to have you, as always. All right. I have a website called keepinglate.com. I think I've plugged it way too many times here. You can check that out. I also have a podcast called Linux Out Loud, where I talk with my co-hosts, Matt and Wendy, sometimes Bill, about things. So thank you all for your support, however you do it, being a part of the conversation, both here on Discord or on YouTube, and also for everyone who watches the show after the fact. Thank you so much. Also, I want to thank everyone involved in making Linux and open source tools possible for us to not only have this conversation, but also to have fun and enjoy our technology. Linux truly puts personal back into personal computers and maybe someday your phones. Thank you for stopping by. Be sure to tip your developers, and please remember to Linux responsibly. Until next time, see yous.
Bye, everybody.